Dearest mother, I beg you, don't let this be my fate. The Ugly Stepsister is a Shudder original from Norway. It was written and directed by Amelie Blichfeldt in her feature film debut, and starts off with the union of Rebecca, played by Andal Torp, and a man named Otto, who happen to have children, but they found love. These two adults are so crazy about each other, so crazy in love. They want to bring things together. They want to bring their families right close. Two worlds, one family. Well, let's just say this holy union, this plan, kind of goes tits up pretty early on, and Rebecca ends up having to take over the day-to-day duties of the household. Now, Otto's daughter, Agnes, basically has to take care of every need of Rebecca's, as well as Alma, who's the younger daughter, and Elvira, played by Leah Myron, who is somebody that Rebecca has very high hopes for. She hopes that Elvira can find a rich suitor, maybe possibly a prince, and can bring them a whole bunch of money, because that's one thing about this time period. Everybody was so goddamn greedy and just wanted to get as much money as possible. So, being that this is a Norwegian movie, if I mispronounce any of the names, I do apologize. Agnes is played by Thea Sophie Loch-Nice. Hope I got that right. And there is also a prince, Prince Julian, played by Isaac Comroth. So, after that, you can look at the IMDb page. I would probably screw up some of these names. And being that it's in Norwegian, get ready to read subtitles. If you have not seen the trailer for this movie, I encourage you, don't actually see the trailer. I did. I saw it maybe, a couple times before a couple movies, but hadn't really seen all that much. Saw that it was playing a very limited release in some theaters. Decided to go to a late show after seeing Sinners a little bit early on in the day, and plunked down my money and decided to sit down and see what The Ugly Stepsister was all about. So, if you have not seen the trailer, basically this is just, a gothic horror-inspired film that takes certain things from a certain grim fairy tale. I'm trying to keep it, again, as spoiler-free as possible, but if you can't guess from the Ugly Stepsister title, I really don't know what to say. If you have seen the trailer, then basically here's what it is. It is a gothic spin on the Cinderella fairy tale. And it is grim, it is grotesque at times, and it is something that I absolutely fucking adored from beginning to end. This is how you do gothic horror. This is how you build anticipation for the eventual grotesque moments. This is how you let people loose. I have to say that Leah did a very good job as Elvira. And yes, we say Elvira here, but let's just look at the spelling and everything, and let's just go with that. I do have to say that Anna does a great job as Rebecca, the mother that's very, very vicious. Fair warning, if you do eat before this, you might end up being a little bit grossed out. Don't know if I would buy too much food before going into the theater. And also, if you have a problem with certain fluids and certain bits of nudity, then really there is going to be, a few points where you're going to be like, well, this is going to turn me off my lunch, or I'll just do like this. So there are some squirming moments, not as many as in the substance, and this movie does have a couple issues. Maybe at an hour and 45 minutes, it's a little bit long, but as far as the music's very, very good. The camera work's very good. The performances by Leah and they did good. And Thea also did a great job as Agnes. And it shows the insane beauty standards that, were set for women even back then and still are now. But then you get to see the primitive ways that some women, butchered their bodies and try to fix flaws in them. And I do want to say that I know the whole point of it was to shine a light on the insane beauty standards and the fact that people should just be happy with who they are. But I have to say that Leah there's nothing wrong with how she looked. I know that's the point, but she was fine as she was. But it was one of those where you're not sure who to necessarily have sympathy for, because you don't really have a reason to feel bad for Rebecca. You don't really have a reason to feel bad for Elvira, and Agnes is kind of in the background, because even though this is a gothic spin on the and a horror spin on the Cinderella tale, it is something that really does center on what Elvira goes through and what others go through as well. There are some scenes that I'll talk about in the spoiler section, even for those that have seen the trailer, but there are some parts where I'm like, oh, there's one particular part, a surgical scene that I couldn't quite look at because of something where it's like, oh. But Amelie did a really good job here. I do apologize if I mispronounced her name at all. But for good world building and some very, very good gothic horror elements and some very good gore effects, and things ramped up quite a bit in the third act, this actually was quite good. I really did end up enjoying this quite a bit more than I thought. Being it is in theaters for a limited release, if you get a chance to check it out, please let me know what you thought. It will probably drop on Shudder at some point. I like that Shudder is able to get these movies in a limited release. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, Shudder is able to expand out, and it gives a boost to the theatrical, patrons and theater chains. That being said, I'm going to get into spoilers. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, basically, in the beginning, we find out, that Elvira has dreams of finding the prince and everything, has these visions of this prince sweeping her off her feet, but she seems sort of as an ugly duckling. Now, this is objectively, as a person just looking at her, there's nothing wrong with how she looks. That's just my personal opinion, but she plays the role well. Rebecca ends up, married to Otto, and suddenly Otto dies. Now, there is probably the idea that Otto was poisoned, or he was just really, really old, whatever. This is played for laughs, and there's a lot of good dark comedy, but Agnes is very upset. And Elvira kind of makes some moves in on, wanting to treat her right, but also, hey, we're living in this nice mansion and this kind of stuff. But then it turns out that they actually don't really have that much money, Otto and Agnes, for whatever reason, even though they were living in this nice house. So now the idea is Rebecca has to find a get-rich-quick scheme, and the idea is to get Elvira married off to the prince. Prince doesn't necessarily want her, and also they're preparing her for a ball. The idea is they were going to fix her nose. They're going to do all this stuff. Now, Agnes, mind you, also likes a boy named Isaac that's the farm boy on the I wanted to say on the set. I mean, it was a set, but on the grounds. And that leads to one scene a little bit later on. But one thing I did like was, Elvira really didn't want to do this stuff, but then kind of got, addicted to the idea that she could change her looks, and they fixed her nose and she had to wear a metal guard thing and stuff like that. And it was really disgusting. I do have to say the character of Miss Sophie that seemed to take an interest in quite a few of these women, these young girls, especially Elvira. I'd say that the actress playing Miss Sophie, like a beautiful Norwegian Jane Seymour, with respect. I didn't get the woman's name, but my God, she's beautiful. And she, takes a liking to Elvira, who still can't fit in, still can't get the epitome of beauty and this kind of stuff. She's worried about her chest, all this. Some of it's surface level, but I do have to say the performances do drive this. And eventually, talking to Alma, the younger sister, talking about all the stuff going on. They're doing this one part where they're out in the woods because Miss Sophie came up with the idea, hey, you're beautiful, but let me help you out. I'm going to give you something in a locket. You know what it was? It was a tapeworm egg. Oh boy. And Alma's like, well, don't take that. That's really stupid and everything. Well, yeah, a tapeworm, you can eat whatever you want. They have their problems, though. And if you are upset by gurgling noises and everything, this movie will not be for you because there's a lot of gurgling noises once she consumes that tapeworm egg. Now, granted, that's a number of minutes into the movie. And also, during this period, she ends up seeing Isaac and Agnes fucking in the goddamn barn. With sploots all over. I don't know why they needed to show that, but it's fine. Whatever. Funny feeling came all over the camera, literally. But Agnes then is kind of, seen as a whore, as Stu Hart would say. And Isaac is kicked out. That's a shame, because all he wanted to do was be with the incredibly attractive Norwegian blonde. I do have to say that Thea is a very attractive woman. You would be hard pressed to, to not recognize that. But this is not part of Rebecca's plan. And obviously Agnes is Cinderella, and more stuff comes out about her, while Elvira is doing everything she can to fix herself. Now, they did remove her braces before they fixed her nose and did the tap thing, and whew, that was brutal. Now, removing the braces, I don't know if braces were necessarily a thing back in this time period, but it's fine. Then, she's got the nose guard on, that kind of stuff, does the tapeworm thing. Things are working out, and she's losing weight, and she's able to do whatever, and she's able to do all these things. But that comes with the, thing of eating and eating and eating. And also, Agnes really wants to go to this ball because she recognizes that, she could break out of this whole thing. She also is upset by the fact, one thing I did like about this movie, even though it was grotesque, they wouldn't spend the money to bury the dad. Rebecca wouldn't. So Otto's corpse is just just eroding and eroding, and it's really disgusting. Well, there's a point where there's a fight between Agnes and Elvira. After she said that she wanted to go to the ball, Agnes Cinderella did. Agnesrella, as it were. Cinder Agnes? No, let's just go with Cinderella. She wanted to go to the ball. She had a few of her own goddamn supplies. Rebecca's trying to, prevent this from happening. Because all this work and all this money and all this pushing stuff off, she was going to pay the doctor double when the ball was done. And after she married the prince. Well, Agnes ends up basically, she gets her dress ripped up. She puts it on her dad's, sarcophagus or whatever, mausoleum thing. And she's freaking out. She sees her mother, and then, the maggots are like silkworms and fix the goddamn dress. It's kind of gross, but it's pretty good. And let's just say that tapeworm ain't working out all that great for Elvira. Now, we do at midnight, it will turn into a pumpkin thing. Except your diaphragm won't turn into a pumpkin. It won't be Peter something eater. That's an old joke that I don't know if anybody watching this will get. But Agnes is trying her best to, just go to the ball, have some fun. And even though Elvira has put herself through this hell, and Alma is still there as her sister, let's just say, I'm not saying you necessarily need to root for Elvira, but she did put herself through a lot of stuff at the behest of her mother. Always listening to her mother, as Alma said. Now, the ball doesn't exactly go all that well, even though she originally had a confrontation or a meeting with the prince, and the prince was with his guys, doing some pheasant hunting, and they joked about, fucking her, and he's like, nah, I wouldn't fuck her. And, we all have a type, come on. But he does end up seeing that, yes, Elvira has put in the work and everything and has gotten better. And has gotten more attractive because, when she was just regular looking, she didn't matter. That's the movie's message. But then Agnes shows up, and Elvira is upset. Very, very upset. She then eventually recognizes, looking up in this, reflective surface. I guess it was like a giant mirror in the ceiling. I don't know. The music was a bit odd. It was a bit synthy, which I don't know if synth would necessarily fit with an 1800s gothic horror movie, but whatever. Leah's freaking out. She's starting to really have issues with this tapeworm. She ends up throwing it up at one point in another room, and the eggs are coming up, which means that thing is having babies inside her, which means she has to eat more and more. Now, they didn't lean into this as much as they could have, and that's really my only quibble. But the mother's trying to get her to just stop this. Okay, the prince doesn't want you. You know what? There are plenty other suitors out there. We can get another suitor. Meanwhile, Agnes has to leave because, she leaves the shoe, all that stuff. And, finding the other shoe that Elvira eventually takes away from Agnes. She gets the shoe away from her, has a meat cleaver. The mother is nailing some young man and is upset because Elvira basically failed her, even though she could have still gotten another suitor. She's done everything for her mother here. And now she's decided, okay, looking at the shoe, she decides she's gonna cut off the toes of her feet as opposed to the toes of her hands. But before I talk about that, there is one scene that I want to talk about where she really had a glow up, as it were. She had false eyelashes sewed into her eyelids with like a fucking needle, like a hook needle. That was the part where I'm like, no. And I don't know why that bothered me, but it just, the image of it, just the implication of stuff being near the eyes, and a really good gore and body horror effects, I do have to say. Great work by the crew here. But she decides, oh, I'm just going to cut my toes off, with this and everything. She's freaking out because she didn't quite get all the way through. She's wondering what she's doing. Alma gets a tourniquet on her and is trying to fix this. And then her mother's like, you know what? Okay, we'll do that. We'll get the shoe to fix. Oh, honey, you cut the toes off on the wrong foot. So she gives her some medicine to numb it and cuts the toes off the other feet. So she has the fucking toes on her fucking feet. It's gross, but it's awesome. But then she freaks out because she sees that both her feet are bloody, even if they're cauterized or they all this. Oh, Agnes is there and ends up getting married to the prince, or the shoe fits and stuff like that. So the search will quit, because that was Johnny Cochran's great grandfather that said that. And meanwhile, Elvira drags herself down the goddamn steps, or the stairs and stuff like that, and is just freaking out. She's bleeding. She's all upset. She feels just totally despondent, broken down. She's cut her body up, hacked her body up so much just to please her mother, just to get the family something, just to do this. I'm not saying Elvira was a peach, but good God, Rebecca is just pure fucking evil. And then Alma suddenly goes into her mom's room, steals some jewelry, and decides, you know what, my sister isn't all that bad. I'm going to take her with us, or take her with me. And then she leads her down like a wheelbarrow down the steps, and then gets her on the horse, and then all that is perfectly fine. Now, the one thing that I did forget to mention before I talk about, the last shot of the end credits is, after the toe stuff and all that, she takes the antidote to throw up the tapeworm. But there's a lot of tapeworms. It's like pulling this stuff out. All these tapeworms, almost having to break these things. It is disgusting. It is revolting. And that's not the end of the tapeworms, because she wheelbarrows her down. They're going to go on, they're going to go on the horses and go away with some of the jewelry, because seemingly the mother is okay. She either has money or she's just happy to be nailing a guy and whipping his dick out. And they showed quite a bit of dick in this, more than I expected, which, whatever. That's what you're into. It's fine. And the last shot is the crows eating some of the tapeworms. And then we just freeze. And then we go to the end credits. So there you are. That is The Ugly Stepsister. It's gross. It's grim. It has a couple issues, but I'm still, for the entertainment purposes, going to give it an A+. I had a great time with this. Check it out on my Letterboxd if you want. So, agree, disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland, and I'll see you soon.